Alright, this is my last set of quadratic videos, I hope, for the rest of my stinking life. So, projectile problems. Just kidding, I don't mind. I like this. Okay, so we're doing projectile problems. Projectiles are things that are flying through the air. And so we're looking at problems that have things flying through the air. Our first problem is looking at a jumping spider, which is flying through the air. Now, a student asked me earlier today, well, where do we get that equation? Well, usually the scientists will get the equation by measuring some data, or you could record it on a video camera or something, and then using the times in order to calculate the heights and things like that. Or you can understand, say, physics, and if you understand physics, then you can actually come up with these equations by knowing some basic things about the animal or how they jump or how long they're in the air. All right, so let me go ahead and work through 3 of these. So here we go, jumping spiders. Modeled by the equation h equals 33t minus 16t squared, where h is height in feet and t is time in seconds. So when is the spider's height 0 feet? So this is actually really nice to us. It wants us to find the height of 0 feet. In other words, when is it on the ground? Before it jumps, after it jumps. Okay, so we're going to put 0 in for h. 0 equals 33t minus 16t squared. Now, a lot of these are going to be very, very similar in that we're going to solve them in much the same way, because they're going to be, a lot of these are very like the others. And so you'll see that as we work through these 3 questions. So here, what's the first thing we should always do when we're factoring? Hopefully you said look for a common factor. So we look, there's no number that's common to both of those, but there is a letter. Please don't forget about the letters. They're already different from the numbers. They feel left out as it is. Don't leave them out. T, and then you've got 33 minus 16t. The nice thing is now it's factored. These are linear. Those are easy to work with. We can now say t equals 0 and 33 minus 16t equals 0. All right, so that's actually pretty easy then to work out. That one is 0, and then if I subtract 33, I now get negative 16t equals negative 33. Divide both sides by negative 16, and we get t equals a positive 33 over 16, because a negative divided by a negative is positive. So there you go. You have the 2 answers. Do both of these make sense? Think before you speak. The answer is yes. They should make sense, because at t equals 0, it hasn't jumped yet. So yeah, they both make sense, right? Before the jump, at the end of the jump. So yes, at a height of 0 twice. So now the second question is, what is the spider's height after 1 second? That's actually a little bit easier even, because we just say height equals 33. We say the time is 1 second. So minus 16 times 1 squared. So height equals 33 minus 16, which is 17 feet. Yeah, spiders really jump that high. Really, yes, believe it. Okay, on to the second question. The path of a cheetah pouncing on an antelope can be modeled using this equation, where h is height in feet and t is time in seconds. So, how long is the cheetah in the air before he lands back on the ground? So this one, recognize it's not telling you what the height is, but he's saying back on the ground. And so again, we're going to go 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 19t. And so, of course, we look for the common factor, which again is t. This is going to be very similar to last time. If you want, you can take out a negative t. In fact, you know, I like taking out the negative t because I don't like having a negative leading coefficient. So I'm going to take out a negative t, which leaves me with 16t minus 19. We can solve for both of those. So we go negative t equals 0 and 16t minus 19 equals 0. Divide by negative 1, and t equals 0. We add 19, divide by 16. You know, I was listening to this children's song the other day, and it tried to rhyme 7 and even because they're spelled the same way. I was like, I'm sorry, a little kid may be fooled by that when it's like written out, but when you're singing it, 7 and even don't even sound the same. I mean, holy smokes, right? Anyway, sorry. T equals, that is a 19 over 16, and t equals 0. So, how do we get the answer from this? Well, they do both make sense. He's on the ground before he jumps. He's on the ground again after he lands. How much time is in between those 2 points when he's on the ground? Well, it's 19 over 16 seconds. You can write that as 1 3/16 or write it as a decimal, whatever you want is fine. Letter B, if he leaps up to a ledge 3 feet high, how much time will he spend in the air? Again, this time the height is going to need to be 3 because we're going up to 3 feet. So 3 equals negative 16t squared plus 19t. This one will be a little bit different because it's not equal to 0. You have a couple of different options here. You could subtract the 3. I'm actually going to add the 16t squared and subtract the 19t just because I like having a positive t squared. You could just as easily you could just as easily move the 3 and then multiply by a negative or factor out a negative or whatever. But I like doing things the hard way. Not really. So now we're at this point, equals 0. So now we need to figure out how to factor it, right? So we'll go for factoring. I'm going to say maybe I don't really know how to do this. So let's see if we can try to factor. If we go 16t and t, and then we go, it's a plus, so they got to be the same sign. They got to give me a negative, so it's got to be minus minus. And so 3 times 1 for the 3. And so we go 16 times 1, which is negative 16, and negative 3 times 3, which is negative 3, right? Negative 16t, negative 3t, which give me a negative 19t, which checks out. So this is correct, equals 0. So either 16t minus 3 equals 0, or t minus 1 equals 0. So either one of these will work. We'll add 3 to both sides. 16t equals 3, divide by 16, and you get t equals 3 over 16. Or add 1 to both sides, and we get t equals 1. Now again, we did get 2 answers. Do they both make sense? Think before you answer. In fact, yes, they do make sense, right? Because when a cheetah jumps through the air, he jumps up like this and leaps through the air. 3 feet could be right here, so he could be jumping on a ledge that's just right there. Or he could be flying through the air, taking a little bit more time, and be landing on a ledge that's 3 feet high over there. And so yes, both of these do make sense. The 3/16 is right here. The 1 second is right there. All right, so let's move on to the very last question. Clayton is jumping on a trampoline. Again, his height can be modeled by this equation. H equals negative 16t squared plus 2.4t plus 6, where t is time in seconds. How many seconds will he spend in the air for each jump? Okay, so we need to calculate from when he's on the ground, he goes in the air, and on the ground again. So what does that mean? Hopefully you got that meant the height is 0. Now what I'm going to do, because I really don't like this decimal here. Granted, you could do the quadratic formula, right? And that would be fine. You can do the quadratic formula, and that's not a problem at all. But I, like any normal, sensible human being, want to try to avoid the quadratic formula at all costs. And so what I'm going to do is, you can either turn this into a fraction and get rid of the thing on the bottom, or another thing you can do is, I know that if I multiply everything by 10, then that will give me negative 160t squared. That will now be plus 24t and then plus 60. And then at this point, I can look for a common factor and try to pull out a common factor. I see that 2 definitely goes into everything. Does 3? Well, 3 goes into 60, it goes into 24, doesn't go into 160. So definitely the 2 will work. 4, looks like 4 will work as well. So maybe let me factor out a 4. So let's go 0 equals, and I'm going to factor out a negative 4 just because I don't like the negative in front. So negative 4 into 160 would be 40t squared. Negative 4 there would be minus 6t, and then minus 15. Nothing else common, so at this point we can factor. You could have divided by negative 4 as well, because 0 divided by negative 4 is 0. But it's not really going to hurt anybody out there, and he always gets left out anyway. So we may as well be kind to him, leave him there. So it's a negative, so it's got to be a plus and a minus. 40t squared means it's going to have to be either a 40 and a 1, or a 20 and a 2, or a 10 and a 4, or maybe an 8 and a 5. Maybe let me look at the 15 first. So it's probably going to have to be, let's maybe try a 5 and a 3. I like to keep away from 1 and 15 unless I have to. And then maybe looking at the 40t squared, maybe 8 and 5. I don't know. Let's see if it works. Let's go with 8 here and 5 there. So 8 times 3 is negative 24. 5 times 5 is 25. That didn't quite work as well as I had hoped. So let's get rid of it. So 8 and 5 didn't work. But maybe if we switch their places. You want to try switching their places? So let's put 5 here and 8 there. 8 times 5 is 40, and 5 times 3 is 15. So no, that didn't work. So I'm pretty not happy with 8 and 5. Maybe we can try 2 and 20. You want to try 2 and 20? So 2 and 20 looks like maybe it's not going to work out so well either, actually, because I got the 2 and the 20. The 20 is going to be way too big. 4 and 10, maybe 4 and 10. Can I try 4 and 10? But again, the 4, if I put 4 here, that'll give me 20, that'll give me 30. So yeah, not looking too promising right now. So I don't really want to try 1 and 40. So maybe I need to try the 15, right? So let's try 15 and 1. And so I don't think the 8 and 5 is going to work out, but we can try the 10 and the 4. Try a 10 and a 4 here. So go, I don't want the 10 being multiplied by the 15, but if I put 10 here and 4 there, that'll give me 4 times 15, which is 45, and 10. So no, that one's not going to work out. So not 4 and 10. How about 2 and 20? 2 and 20 work out? No, 2 times 15 is 30. 20 times 1. No, that one didn't work out either. So my factoring idea isn't really working out. So maybe at this point I want to go quadratic formula. I guess I can check. We talked about checking the square root number to see if it's actually factorable or not. But let me just go ahead. I'll go ahead and use the quadratic formula. So A is 40, B is negative 6, C is negative 15. So we go x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I did that because I wanted to show you that sometimes, yeah, even Mr. Bywater has a hard time figuring out the factoring. And so, yes, we do sometimes resort to the quadratic formula. So negative b, so b is negative 6, so negative 6 plus or minus the square root of b squared. B is negative 6, so negative 6 squared minus 4 times a, which was 40, times c, which was negative 15, all over 2 times a. And so now we simplify. X equals 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 plus 4 times 40 is 160 times 15 is, let's go 4 times 40 times 15. So 2,400. And negative times negative is positive, so plus 2,400 all over 2 times 40, which is 80. And so I now got x equals 6 plus or minus the square root of 2,436. I really don't think that that's a perfect square. Let's check. 2,436. See if we can square root it. No, it doesn't give me a square root, which means I was right. This couldn't be factored. It was worth a shot, but stinks to be us. So let's see if we can just kind of figure it out from there. If you want to go by hand, you can. You can do 2, 4, 3, 6, which is, maybe I'll do it over here. So 2, 4, 3, 6. Let's see, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. If I add up the digits, 6 plus 3 is 9, plus 4 is 13, plus 2 is 15, which means it's divisible by 3. It's also even, which means it's divisible by 2. So I'm going to go 6, because that's 3 and 2. 6 goes into 24 4 times, 6 goes into 3 0 times, and then 6 goes into the 36 6 times. 6 turns into 2 and 3. 406 is 2 times 203. 203, I don't really know how to factor that any further, so I'm going to leave it as it is, but I do see that I've got a 2 that I can factor out, and so I'm going to rewrite this as x equals 6 plus or minus. I pull out the 2 times 2, which is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 3 times 203, which is 609, divided by 80. Reduce it. X equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 609 over 80. So I'm okay with you leaving it like this. If in the end you really feel like you need an answer, then you can go 3 plus 609 equals, and then divided by 80, so 0.34 seconds, so x equals 0.34. And then also, if we then do 6 minus 609, the square root of 609 divided by 80. And so that's a negative time, which doesn't make any sense. So we're left with x equals 0.34 seconds. And that's the ball game, y'all. All right. Thank you for checking out the video. I hope that was helpful. Please notice that sometimes factoring works, sometimes it doesn't. And that's all.